Hello, I'm Andrew Fisher, and I believe that the wheel is the world's greatest contribution. Have you ever tried to imagine a world without wheels? Hard, right? Not one culture can be credited with the creation or invention of the wheel, but the earliest known usage of the wheel in modern ways can be credited to the Mesopotamians. So, the wheel is the greatest contribution to mankind because it can be used in a variety of different ways. The wheel revolutionized transportation. It provided tires for transportation that was usually done by animal-pulled sleds. When anybody needed to move something, it would be very tough, but when the wheel came along, these tough jobs turned into easier jobs. The wheel paved the way for cars, trains, and any other type of wheeled transport. The wheel also reduced friction so there can be a much smoother ride. Another form of the wheel is the gear, and it helped create the basis for clocks and motor and electrical powered engines. Another impact the wheel had was that it advanced warfare by creating wheeled vehicles that were much more effective than the average foot soldier. The wheel even created entertainment, and a carnival can never be the same without a Ferris wheel. That is why the wheel is the greatest contribution to mankind.
Hi, my name is Brady. The greatest contribution to mankind is the discovery and advancements of electricity. Electricity allows the use of light and quicker transportation. It all started when Benjamin Franklin concluded that electricity and lightning are the same. Then, Count Alessandro Volta invented an electric battery. After that, the alternating current, AC, was created by Nikola Tesla. We can use the AC to deliver electricity to houses and other buildings. Electricity makes life faster, easier, and cheaper in many ways. It has led to higher productivity and less energy being created. Electricity saves a lot of resources by using less energy than other nuclear systems. Electricity makes lighting, TVs, computers, air conditioners, and many more things useful and possible. Lots of amazing inventions have been created with the help of electricity. Computers, cell phones, televisions, lights, and many more things cannot be created without the use of electricity.
Hello, I am going to give you information about color barriers and Martin Luther King Jr. He believed that racism should not be tolerated. He contributed by standing up for racial profiling. This happened around the 60s. People received this information from radios and speeches. The long-lasting effects of this is freedom for all blacks. The impact of this speech was felt immediately. Martin Luther King Jr. won the Nobel Prize in 1960 for peace. His most famous speech is the "I Had a Dream" speech. Some other people who stood up for their color is Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier for baseball and was the first black in Major League Baseball player. Rosie Parks was also someone who stood up for herself. She was an African American civil rights activist. She's demonstrated this by not moving to the back of the bus where the blacks go. Instead, she stayed on the front of the bus where the whites sat.
When Christopher Columbus came to America, he also brought slavery. They treated the slaves like garbage. If you fast forward a few hundred years, the Civil War breaks out, and afterward the slaves are free. The African Americans were now segregated and still discriminated. This is until African American leaders rose and demanded their rights. These leaders can include figures such as Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. African American went from being treated like objects to being celebrities, athletes, friends, and role models. We live together in peace because of what we have accomplished in our quest to achieve racial equality. When we treated the African Americans like objects, whites were full of mindless rage, and with what we have accomplished we have become more civilized as a race. Imagine a world where your daughter is taken away to be auctioned off to some white family. That would really stink, right? This is why racial equality is so amazing and the greatest contribution to mankind. I am Charles Xavier and I approve this message.
Hi, my name is Martin Luther King Jr., but most know me as the main leader of the civil rights movement during the 1950s and the 1960s. I advocated a nonviolent approach, but I was strong. Also, most people know Rosa Parks was arrested for disobeying a city law requiring that blacks give up their seats on the bus for whites. The civil rights movement was to secure African Americans equal access to and opportunities for the best privileges and rights of U.S. citizens. It influenced the modern women's rights movement and the student movement of the 1960s. African Americans were segregated and couldn't vote. They didn't receive economic opportunity. Beginning in the late 19th century, state and local governments passed segregation laws. They also restricted voting qualifications that left the black population economically and politically powerless. Blacks didn't receive the same education and opportunities as whites. Brown vs. Board of Education outlawed racial segregation in public schools, and the NAACP went against segregation. However, the impact was felt, and people began to realize it's just not fair for blacks to be treated like that.
Football is the greatest contribution to mankind because it entertains people, boosts company sales, and basically owns a day of the week. During one football game, the attendances are on 70,000. If people are willing to pay money to see a game, it is clearly a great contribution. Studies show that during football season, sales of things such as pizza, wings, and jerseys skyrocket because these are things that go with football. If it boosts sales, it is obviously a great contribution. Also, the sport of football is not just about playing football. It is about giving back to those who helped you. There is many programs that professional football players volunteer in to help people who are less fortunate than them. They also help at-risk youth and try to get them out of the situations they are in. Life would be very different without football. There wouldn't be as much entertainment or a boost in sales. There wouldn't be a day where friends and family gather around to watch a football game.
Hello everybody, my name is Susan B. Anthony. Women gaining suffrage in America was the greatest contribution to mankind. Prior to the 19th Amendment being passed, women never had the right to vote. Many other countries decided to follow in our footsteps when they saw how successful the women's suffrage movement was here in America. Now, most countries in the world have given their women the right to vote. Women being able to vote in the United States also allows for a more balanced election. Men and women sometimes have different viewpoints about how certain parts of the country should be operated. If only males vote, for one thing, it is not a fair vote considering women make up 51% of America's population. Another reason being that if only men vote, certain important parts of the government may be overlooked since men and women sometimes see things differently. Studies also show that more women graduate from high school than men, so granting women with the right to vote increases the number of highly educated voters. Women gaining the right to vote in the United States had a great impact on American society as well as other countries in the world.
Hello, my name is Jordan and I will be talking about the greatest contribution to mankind, the color barrier. When the color barrier was broken and the civil rights movement gave African Americans hope to stand up for themselves and believe that segregation should come to an end. During segregation, blacks were tortured and not treated with respect. No one really stood up for their own freedom, until three people did. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr. and Jackie Robinson all stood up for themselves and others. Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier and Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. started the civil rights movement. Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier on April 15, 1947. He was the first African American to play in the MLB. Once he joined the MLB, he wasn't treated with respect and people tried to hurt him. Pitchers tried to hit him with pitches and batters called him racist names. Another person who stood up for segregation was Rosa Parks. She didn't give up her seat when a white man asked her to. Blacks were supposed to give up their seats when they were asked. She got arrested for it. Rosa didn't get on the bus to get arrested, she went on the bus to go home. She stood up for herself and didn't like segregation. Also, Martin Luther King gave speeches to end segregation. This changed the way blacks were treated.
I am Albert Einstein, and I created the theory of relativity. It is the greatest contribution to mankind. The theory was that the speed of a clock will slow down if it moves through space at the speed of light. It described objects at rest in movement with uniform relative velocity. The theory of relativity helped develop nuclear fusion. By working on the theory, I discovered that the photoelectric effect was produced by high frequency light, no matter how dim. I received the Nobel Prize in 1921. My influence led to the establishment of the Manhattan Project after World War II. My work also resulted in establishing quantum mechanics. After I died, scientists were doing experiments disagreeing with old laws of science as I did.
Walt Disney's company had the greatest impact to me. The major player was Walt Disney, created by him and his brother Roy. They made Stumble Willie in 1928, created the first cartoons with sound and color. Even today they are making dreams and inspiring us. They made the California Institute of the Arts for young artists. Even during World War II, they were helping people through. They made propaganda, drawings, and cartoons. Today they employ millions from around the world for their worldwide thinks. That is why they made the greatest contribution.
Hello, my name is Michael and I will be talking about the most important contribution to mankind, the wheel. The wheel was invented in Mesopotamia in about 3500 BC. It was first used as a potter wheel, to keep a clay pot spinning while a potter was making it. Since then, the wheel has been used in millions of ways. It was capable of being used in a new way, transportation. Wheels were attached to carriages, pulled by rather a horse, a donkey, or some sort of animal. This was very helpful at the time because before that, many people had to move goods by hand. Over thousands of years, people were able to innovate the wheel and carriage to make automotive vehicles. It allowed the movement of people and goods to be faster and easier. Millions of jobs are linked with the automotive industry, such as dealerships, auto body shops, gas stations, and many more. The wheel has made our lives easier, and has allowed life on Earth to exist. Hello. I am Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. During the time I served as President, the Civil War started. I created the Emancipation Proclamation, the most important contribution. Without asking my cabinet, I passed the Emancipation Proclamation. It had to be put into action over a long period of time. At this time I had to try to preserve the Union, and passing this proclamation could have made it worse. Many people opposed this proclamation, especially the southern states. In time, the Emancipation Proclamation freed many African American slaves. Without it, freedom of slaves may not exist or may have been delayed. The freedom of the slaves helped to start the civil rights movement. If the slaves had not been freed by the Emancipation Proclamation, Equal rights may be different or non-existent. Equality for all people of all races gave the country better morals. This is why my contribution, the Emancipation Proclamation, was the most important contribution ever created.
My name is Martin Luther King Jr., and I was one of the main leaders in the Civil Rights Movement. The movement took place from the 1950s until the 1960s. The Civil Rights Movement gained African Americans many things. During the movement, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was created to fight for African American rights. The movement resulted in the African Americans getting their voting rights, the abolishment of racial segregation and discrimination towards blacks, and the creation of many acts and laws to help them gain the rights they deserve from birth. The African Americans could now sit with the white people on the bus, go to the same school, use the same bathroom, and drink out of the same water fountain. They also could now vote and have a part in picking the president. This is good because they now had a say in government like everyone else. Acts and laws were also created that helped them to get rid of racial discrimination towards the blacks. For example, the Fair Housing Act of 1965 made sure that there was no discrimination when they wanted to buy a house. Finally, the Civil Rights Movement definitely was the greatest contribution to mankind.
Has this ever happened to you?
I have no way to watch cat videos.
Then you need a computer.
What is this computer you speak of?
Here, let me and my friend show you. It all started in the late 1800s when a man named Charles Babbage thought of the idea of making a computer-like machine. Unfortunately, due to the time's rudimentary technology, it was impossible. Then, a man named Herman Hollerith in 1886 invented the first computer-like machine. Used in the 1886 census, it punched holes into cards to calculate the U.S. population. It was a massive success. While this was an amazing piece of technology for the time, the first digital computer revolutionized the field. The complex computer made by IBM was demonstrated in 1940.
Well, this computer is great, but it's too big for my house and kind of hard to use. Plus, I don't have enough money to buy it.
Microsoft was led by a man named Bill Gates. He had an idea to make computers for the average man. Apple was led by Steve Jobs. He also had an idea to create computers easier to use for the average people. However, they each had different ideas for getting that. Microsoft wanted to create software and programs for computers, which led to things like MS-DOS and Windows. Apple went on to create computers that were easier to use, which led to the Macintosh and Apple II.
Wow, that's awesome. But these computers are kind of old and I can't watch my cat videos.
Fear not, my friends. Computers have been constantly evolving over the years as the technology improves. The most notable advancement in the world is the World Wide Web and the Internet, allowing for searching, websites, videos, and all of that stuff. The Internet would be impossible without the computer. The Internet also revolutionized communication, allowing for the creation of worldwide communication with email, texting, and all of those. So now you can watch your cat videos and share them all over the world too.
Whoa, this is amazing.
That's not all the computer helped make. After people realized the capabilities of the computer, they began developing even better ways to use it, such as smartphones, smart TVs, smart watches, and even tablets, like the iPad. It revolutionized music as well, with additions like the iPod and MP3. Business too was changed with long-range communication. Saving and organizing files have been made easier by computers as well.
Cut.
Gee, these computers sure are a great contribution.
Not great, the greatest contribution.
It is difficult to say what is impossible, for the dream of yesterday is the hope of today and the reality of tomorrow. The words of a man who would not only change our world, but all others. Robert Goddard, a professor of physics, began his work with rockets at Clark University, where he added nozzles to the traditional gunpowder rocket, raising its efficiency from 2% to 17%. Later, in 1915, he improved these nozzles, raising the rocket's efficiency from 17% to 40%. After playing around with fuels for a little bit, he launched the first ever liquid-fueled rocket on March 16, 1926. It flew 184 feet. Goddard continued his research with a grant from Daniel Guggenheim. In June of 1930, he launched a rocket near Roswell. It flew 2,000 feet, reaching speeds of 500 miles per hour. Goddard put vanes on the bottom of the rocket in the blast, and he controlled them so the rocket flew straight up. In 1935, Goddard launched a rocket that flew 2.5 miles straight up, reaching speeds of 550 miles per hour. Goddard died on August 10, 1945. Goddard not only revolutionized spaceflight, he created it. His design is still in use today with very minor changes. Spaceflight is known by all of science and all of regular society to be one of the most amazing modern marvels, and it's all possible by one thing, the liquid-fueled rocket, which is what makes it the greatest contribution to society.
Electricity is the greatest contribution to ever happen to society. Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, invented something that is used in most of our everyday objects. It's used for lighting and heating. Alessandro Volta was credited with inventing the battery. The battery is what powers many of our daily objects, such as phones. And Nikola Tesla invented the alternating electric current, which allowed for many more developments in electricity that are also used in our daily lives. The refrigerator and the laundry machine are some of these new advancements that have come from Tesla's invention. Overall, electricity is the greatest.
The Internet, greatest contribution to mankind. The Internet was the work of dozens. It was originally designed for military use and academic use. The Internet grew alongside personal computers. The Internet provides easy access to information, communication, and published content. One-third of the world's population uses the Internet every day. It is used in schools and for businesses. The Internet is relied on by today's society for everything.